Chapter 7 Madness. What are they doing now? Angelina screwed up her face and shook her head. I don't know, she groaned, but it's not good. The fires had grown. One of those bonfires in the ballpark across the way had even expanded. It was like they wanted to make the whole stadium go up in flames. More people had gathered, screaming and dancing like they'd all gone mad. What was more frightening were the glows she could make out in different places around town. Were the other neighborhoods becoming so far gone as this one? Was this the end? Come on, Gordon, she urged. Let's get out of here while the getting's good. Gordon nodded, biting his lower lip. Inhaling deep, he nodded a second time, more convincingly, and scurried back to the map table to hoist up an old hiking frame pack onto his back. Angelina did the same. Her pack had been stocked for food for the most part. They both had plastic water jugs hooked in place, and Gordon had found them a hunting knife each. Angelina wasn't sure she could ever use hers. Since Gordon had the map of the sewer maintenance tunnels, she carried all their maps and random gear they might need for their hike. You're sure they're still there? Gordon checked. No, Angelina replied rather bluntly, but they're still the best bet. It's not like heading south or east would promise us anything better, not with the wild animals out there. Gordon tried to argue. He gave up. Angelina eyed her refound coat a moment. After having gone without it for so long, she didn't like leaving it behind, but Gordon had found them each pocketed jackets that fit better. They were lined and warmer at that, so she sighed and accepted her new coat well enough. This one even had a toque and gloves. Oversized pants and a jacket even matched color-wise. Lead the way, she prompted. They both stared up at the ceiling, hearing the persistent tap above. He's never paced around stalking the floors, Gordon mumbled. I don't know what's gotten into him. Angelina felt a shiver. The town outside was going mad. The caretaker upstairs was seemingly losing his mind. They'd left one day too late. She helped Gordon open the grate near the back of the room, and they climbed down one at a time. Once down, Angelina found herself in a control room of some sort with junction and switch boxes front and back. Gordon opened the metal door far right and led the way down a metal stair into a rather cramped cement tunnel. The smell was growing increasingly foul. So we're following Ambridge over to synagogue. Angelina checked as they transferred to a different tunnel, turning them right. The smell was worse, and she could hear water sloshing even if she couldn't see the sewer water churning past. She could almost hear scratching like rats were trying to claw their way through solid cement to find somewhere drier to claim for their own. Are these maintenance tunnels marked for turns? Numbers, Gordon mumbled, motioning to the walls. The dim yellow lights on the walls weren't much good, but the 10-year-old read the map as they walked like that didn't matter. The offshoot tunnels are marked by designated tunnel numbers. We're looking for S43. S for synagogue, Angelina reasoned. Gordon just shrugged. Pipes came up from the wall at their left and ran alongside them. Angelina liked having a light of some sort, but knowing how tight the space was also bothered her. At least racing along the sewers in the dark like she had before had left her an imagination. She could imagine 3 times the space if she liked. Actually seeing the constant gray, confined tunnel was more than a little discouraging. Turning at tunnel S43, she stopped to lean in and listen to the pipe that turned with them. She was sure she heard screaming. All I hear is water, Gordon insisted. Angelina frowned. Where are we? Gordon thought a moment. Under the old bowling lanes, I think. Not that anyone's bowled there in decades. He leaned in to listen again, then shrugged once more before walking on. Angelina walked on as well. She was sure it had been screaming. So how long have you been telling people what to do? Angelina asked. Their footsteps echoed as they walked. She wondered how everyone in the auditorium was. Well, not Spider and his cohorts. I guess as long as I can remember. Gordon winced at the thought. It's like when you think back and you realize that your parents bought you this and did that for you. When you're young, you don't really think much of it, but most parents weren't as giving as mine. I just didn't realize my words had anything to do with it, I suppose. He averted his gaze, blushed guiltily. I'm sure they loved you and did a good deal of things for you for that reason, Angelina suggested. Gordon shrugging. I've been dreaming of talks and things that happened other places for some time, she added with a sigh. They're always so real, but I didn't realize I was seeing what was really happening until a few years ago. I still don't really know what to do with it. Gordon nodded. Foresee how this will turn out? It doesn't work like that, she countered tiredly. The visions come to me, sometimes not for months. I wish I could just make them happen. Angelina shrugged. Other times I just wish I could turn them off and be like everyone else. Yeah, Gordon mumbled. Small rooms passed on their left. Construction helmets and lockers were hung in some. Ladders heading up were mounted in others. S53A, Gordon remarked by the one ladder. He quickly checked his map. That puts us under the tennis courts. They both leaned in and glanced up. It was a rounded, tighter tunnel up around that ladder. There was nothing to see, but Angelina caught a whiff of flame. Come on, she urged. Let's not linger. Gordon stifled a yawn and nodded. He led on. Angelina didn't blame him to yawn. She'd have liked a few more hours of sleep, too. In part, they'd needed to leave, but in truth, she'd also been afraid to sleep again so soon. What if she found herself back in the warehouse only to find it empty? Worse, what if she found the old man and his apprentice dead? It would save them a trip out of town, but they'd be left to a life in a town that was seemingly and increasingly losing its grip on sanity, and the wizards would be dead. That just wouldn't be fair. Certainly not when they'd come down to find and save her, Gordon, and the other person. And the old man seemed nice for the most part. Their tunnel hit an intriguing junction. Their maintenance tunnel came across a spiral stair leading up and down. Each direction led on to a different tunnel going in a different direction. At the same time, their tunnel also gave a left or right decision. Was it to be up or down? Would they go straight or turn left or right? Gordon delved into his maps, pulling out 3 smaller books for reference. They specialize, he finally grumbled. In what? Angelina grumbled back. The cement flooring was cold and uncomfortable, and her feet hurt. The top floors for wiring, Gordon mumbled. Angelina nodded. It was half full of multicolored wiring. I can't tell what the bottom floor does, Gordon noted with a scowl. They all seem to go to the same places. The town just splits up what level of tunnel guides and what type of output is all. He smiled across. Angelina rolled her eyes. We want to turn right here, Gordon added with a frown. There should be a left turn once we're across Synagogue. That'll lead us up to the locomotive yard, where we'll have to decide our exact route out of town. These tunnels will only take us so far. I know. Okay, then let's go. I want to take a look up top the next chance we get. Why? Angelina glanced upwards, shaking her head. It's like we're in another world down here, she grumbled. I want to know what's going on up there. That way all this endless gray won't be so alien anymore. She blushed, wondering how weird that had sounded. And it'll help me to keep my bearings. Gordon nodded easily enough. Reaching their next turn, they also found a ladder going up. As this ladder and the rounded tunnel up was larger than the others, they leaned their packs below and climbed up together. They both heaved against the metal door at the ladder's end after the locking wheel had been turned. It slowly lifted and they gawked out at the night. The house across the street where Synagogue and Cambridge parted was aflame. The flame was taking in the living room in the neighboring house. People danced on that neighboring house's lawn, cheering those flames on. There was a different group racing down the street, shouting at the dark around them, carrying televisions and various bags. Rocks were thrown, breaking windows on the first and second floors. Some people broke from the group to invade those homes. Screams ensued. Angelina stared aghast as something moved behind those houses. The water tower budged an inch. It was larger than any house. It was made of steel, but it moved like someone was trying to pull it down. Why would anyone want to do that? The smell of fire was so strong, and it was clear to her that this was happening all over Iroquois Falls. Let's keep walking, she whispered. They resumed their trek in silence, except for the random numbers as they appeared. Gordon would check his map and books, listing off the street names of Devonshire, Piccadilly, and Aurora. Then a lot of nothing. Angelina was sure they were still on file, well, under it. With the time they spent walking, they should be at the auditorium by now. Gordon stopped to stare up and sniff around. What's wrong? Angelina mumbled ahead. His expression turned uneasy. Can't you hear that? She shook her head. Something's crumbling. He shrugged and swallowed. Meadows complaining. They were both knocked back as the ceiling crumbled and a large girder crashed down, blocking their path. Cement and dirt followed, filling in the smaller holes. Angelina rolled over, holding her head. She watched the cracks start and snake outwards from the crushed girder. They snaked out along the rightmost wall. The water still sloshing behind that wall. Sprays burst through. She backed up against the opposite wall, headache or not. Gordon backed up right beside her. 3 more bursts of water shot through, breaking cement to spray out into their maintenance tunnel. It began to pool and stream along the flooring. There were sounds. Noses and claws showed as the water sprouts dwindled and rats began to claw their way through into the tunnel. 1, 2, 3 dropped in and began to explore. More were coming, and the wall cracked further along, and those cracks grew larger. They were even snaking above them now. We've got to go, Angelina urged. The ladder up a bit back, Gordon agreed. Kicking some rats away and running past others, they took off at a run. This rounded ladder tunnel was small, so Angelina took it first. Gordon was left to stare at the water gathering at his feet. Angelina could hear the walls groan further. The squealing was only growing. She released the wheel, then turned the metal in a firm grip. The wheel clattered to a stop. She pushed up with her shoulder, fighting whatever was holding it down. The resistance finally abated with the water sloshing up around the bottom of the ladder. Rats were swimming and gathering at its base. She pushed the metal cap open and climbed up and out. Gordon was quick to join her, and they stared around in utter shock. The water tower lay across their chosen path in buckled wave-like sections. It had warped and turned inside out in places. One half of the street had its houses gutted and trees felled. The other was washed out. As the water tower had fallen and broken open, some houses had been crushed outright. The sewers had seemingly been drawn up by impact as well. Half a block was tilting or flooded under, and whole hosts of rats were spreading everywhere. People screamed and ran with the older fires and insane shouts as a background, and cheers were drawing nearer. Angelina was sure whoever had felled the tower was coming to revel in their handiwork. "We should go to the," she started, turning as she spoke. "The auditorium," she ended in a quiet mumble. The auditorium was just visible in the distance where the water tower's girders and large central spoke twisted down. The roof was fallen in. One whole wall was broken out. The one end had collapsed, and there were bodies outside. "They'll be here any minute," Gordon hissed. "I never should have come with you." "You'd be cornered and caught by the caretaker who won't listen to you by now," Angelina barked, Gordon averting his gaze, scowling angrily. She had to think fast. "Let's find somewhere to hide until we can figure out our next move." They climbed over some mangled sheet metal and ran off seeking cover. The shouts still drew near. Gordon steered them down Wendigo until the front windows of one house broke out in a tumultuous spray of glass and wood. A chanting group carrying a hoisted body followed that spray, carrying their latest prize off into the night. Angelina grabbed Gordon's wrists and pulled him up behind an old mailbox, pointing left. "Essex," she suggested in a hushed voice, her finger then moving to her lips. They started off at a crouched run, moving from bush to pole, keeping as low as they could. Angelina was sure someone had turned to see them running, but no one chased after them. The chanting stayed where it was before fading away with the disappearing group. They hit the next corner and she glanced right with inspiration, but the thought dwindled to a sad lament. "They've gutted the fire hall," she rued. Gordon pointed ahead. "I see them," she whispered. "Let's go." The worst part was that she didn't even know who the people were. They were people in the dark, walking out near the old church. She had no idea what they'd do to them, and she wasn't going to stick around to find out whether they carried pitchforks or torches or not. Gordon tripped, scraping his knee. "This is the perfect time for a stalk, isn't it?" he grumbled. "I wonder how many kids are out playing right now." Angelina shook her head. "The kids are in hiding," she countered sadly. "It's the adults that are out stalking that I'm worried about." They were the weird ones in a town that had now fully embraced darkness and flame. They were surrounded by a wall they had to get under or over, and she didn't have a clue how they'd do either anymore. Reaching riotous howls and the sounds of more breaking glass, they started a panicked weave between houses across the streets as necessary. Flooding took over 3 houses, and a communal backyard was a large blazing fire pit. Angelina wasn't even sure they were going in the right direction anymore until Gordon pointed to a metal pole knocked down and badly dented. "Hillcrest," he read. "We're close." He smiled at that a moment, then he glanced around the looted, too quiet suburb they'd stumbled into again. Angelina felt a shiver doing the same. It was way too quiet. They were still headed north. Angelina liked that, but there were fires and screams she didn't want to know about. They needed to think. They needed somewhere tall to think. "That house on the corner," she suggested, pointing to where Hillcrest hit its arcing point before turning back out onto Essex again. "It's pretty tall. We can get a good lookout from there. If no one's home." Angelina shrugged. "Well, yeah." Flooded lawns, shattered glass, and crushed mailboxes. The details were as unsettling as the curtains that waved from inside in the silence that followed. The houses around them seemingly watched them pass. Reaching their target house, they found much the same. The 3-story house had been looted and broken through. The back door was on the front lawn with a lot of old electrical furniture that hadn't worked in ages. Clothing and bedding as well as some mattresses were displayed out the right side windows. "I don't think anyone's home," Angelina mumbled. Gordon just blinked. Angelina eyed the knife he'd given her. He hadn't even touched his. She picked up a snapped hockey stick to use as a weapon instead, in case someone attacked them. She was okay with giving someone a bruise. They'd wake up from that. "I don't know about this," Gordon whined. "We should keep moving. The wall's got to be low enough on this end, too." The streetlights, which had been flickering, started going out on the far end of the street, one by one. Gordon stared at this wide-eyed, with his breathing getting steadily more panicked. On second thought, he added with a swallow and nod, "A high-up place to see what's ahead isn't a bad idea." Angelina smiled, leading them inside with a fidgety Gordon. Once inside, they knelt and glanced around, checking for any movement. The living room furniture had been turned over and broken. Knickknacks had been knocked from the wall shelves and scattered about the room, and the rug had been ripped out, leaving a badly scratched, dirt-stained wooden floor. Angelina sighed. The place would have looked nice before it had been trashed. Upstairs, she whispered. Gordon just nodded. She noticed he was carrying the base of a broken lamp. The bulb and shade were gone, and the cord had been ripped free with most of the brass base. They picked their way through the living room, stopping to gaze into the kitchen. The cupboard had been emptied onto the floor with pans, measuring cups, and dishes in oddly heaped piles, broken and whole. The fridge leaned from the wall with its door open and light blinking. Angelina frowned. They'd picked it clean, and she was starting to get quite hungry. Turning upstairs, she found the peach-colored walls scraped and painted on. Blue and gold stripes had been run up and down each wall. The paint had dripped before drying. Some places even seemed to still be wet. Upstairs, they searched out some rooms. They were in equal bad state of affairs. No one seemed home, which made Angelina wonder where they were. There were 3 bedrooms and 3 beds, so a small family had lived there at one time. They climbed up to the attic, finding age-old pictures and boxes rooted through. The dust was awful in all but one room. They picked that small alcove for a lookout and made themselves comfortable on some scrounged and fluffed-up comforters and plaid cushions. Angelina positioned herself at an angle so she could see out the alcove window and spot anyone who came up upon them from behind. Gordon leaned back and dug into a sandwich they'd packed along. That's less than inspirational. Gordon screwed up his face. What? That roadblock, Angelina grumbled, where the back road exits through the wall. They've got all the police and construction cars all rammed up against the doors. There has to be at least 50 people out there with guns. What do they think they're doing? No one's coming their way. Well, Gordon mumbled, we were thinking of heading their way. Angelina frowned. Yes, she conceded, we were. But they wouldn't know that. She shrugged, grabbing a sandwich for herself. There were bonfires lit, burning bright on either side of the blockade. It was visible a long ways off, and they were only maybe 10 blocks away, so details weren't hard to spot. Why did they go and block up a nice exit? She grumbled on. Why not use it themselves while the getting was good? There's mad, and there's just plain crazy. Gordon squinted. What's that outside the wall? Angelina squinted too. Something's moving in the shadows, she agreed. Another reason they should be pointing their guns away from town. A glass tipped over and dropped. It rolled instead of breaking. Angelina gazed toward the stairs leading down. You heard that, right? She asked. Yep. Plastic was stepped on or moved aside. Angelina couldn't be sure which. She stalked silently forward, peering over the side of the stairs. There was no one about. She hoisted her hockey stick around and crept down a few steps. Gordon's head poked around behind her. Angelina motioned for him to stay where he was. All she wanted to do was know who was in the house. It could be a raccoon or a squirrel for that matter. If Gordon remained above, she had somewhere to run for backup should their intruder be more than local wildlife. She decided not to think on this plan too much. What kind of backup was this 10-year-old anyway, right? Angelina crept on according to plan. She was 14. The oldest person should go first and take the risk. A squeaky toy sounded under her right foot. The metal globe rolled as the next step came down. Turning, she hit the wall with her stick. Shit, she grumbled too loudly. Angelina closed her eyes. Well, stealth was pretty much lost now. She wasn't sneaking up on anybody. She still crept on. She actually made it to the next set of stairs down without making any more noise. The coast was clear. Swallowing her fear, she crept down to the main floor. The rooms were empty. A group of riders strutted past carrying bags and sacks filled to the brim. The scouts ran ahead but left them alone. She watched a family of possums climb over the neighbor's fence. Angelina smiled. The rooms were empty. She felt good with things just so long as the possums, that group of riders, and others weren't coming back. She started back up, pausing in front of the one second-floor window. The fires glowed so bright, and the dark sections of town were so black. Streetlights flickered in a few sections only. They were all dying. It wasn't just the crazies doing this. If things were that simple, they'd make more sense, but common, everyday people had seemingly lost their minds too. Pretty quickly at that. She was near the base of the attic stairs when she heard the floorboards groan and cylinders roll into place. Could she bring the stick around in time? Angelina turned, keeping the stick low. The person on the other end of the gun who pointed from the nearby shadow wasn't too much older than her. She'd never seen him before. Dark hair and a plain expression didn't speak any more than the gray sweater and blue jeans. Is that thing loaded? She joked as casually as she could. Want to find out? 17. She guessed he was 17, but he was skinny, not too strong. Was he smart enough to bluff? He wasn't Spider's type, not the killer, but then again, these were crazy times. Hungry? Angelina guessed. We have some extra if you'd like. His scowl remained set. What's your name? She tried. Gordon rolled into view down the hall, holding a spear up to throw. Angelina didn't even remember having a spear up there. Their gunman turned to point from one person to the other. Angelina was sure she saw recognition in his eyes. A bit of fear, even. Drop the gun, Gordon demanded. Not happening, came the grumbled reply. Gordon screwing up his face. Angelina figured this was one of those examples of what happened when a 10-year-old's magic words didn't work. What are you two doing here? You need to leave. We are leaving, Angelina insisted, pushing the gun aside as it swayed back her way. The gunman just backed up out of reach, pointing it at her anyway. We just need your window for a while. Then we'll be out of your hair. There was no response. You don't live here, do you? Of course I do. I'm Angelina. Nothing. Fine, we're going upstairs. Join us for food if you like, or stay down here all by your lonesome. Suit yourself. I have a gun. Angelina forced a confident smirk. And we have a spear, she countered rather flatly. And food. Again, you choose. She strutted off up into the attic, pulling Gordon after her. What are you doing? Gordon mumbled conspiratorially. He has a gun. Angelina sighed, leaning into Gordon and glancing down the steps, wondering if their mystery gunman would bite. Yes, he has a gun, she agreed. But don't you feel it? Gordon frowned, furrowing his brows. I felt it nearing you those times at City Hall, Angelina explained. It's like knowing a person you've never met. Gordon blushed. Like knowing you were meant to know that person, he accepted guiltily. He glanced down those steps, too. It can't be him. He can't be the one in the vision curled up in the distance. He can't be the third person they came down to find. Why not? Gordon glared across. He has a gun. You had a spear. Gordon couldn't argue that one. Where'd you find that thing anyway? He motioned to the largest, dusty room. Behind the mummy case. Angelina nodded. Of course. Come on, she urged. Let's plot us away through that wall and more north before it's too late. Gordon remained suspicious, but he followed her and plunked himself down where he'd been. Their third grudgingly followed them up. The gun was stashed in a back pocket, and Angelina passed him something to eat. Simon, he softly offered. This is Gordon, Angelina introduced, the 10-year-old shrugging, remaining quiet. We're heading through that, Angelina continued, pointing to the blockade. Just at that point, something red expanded more northern of town. The three of them stared at the night, watching a funnel of flame expand outwards, followed by what could be bright lightning without thunder. There were minor flashes that followed. Simon backed up to the attic railing and shook his head. They're fighting it, Angelina announced with a shaky smile. They're alive and fighting. Gordon's downcast expression spoke of doubt. They'll likely meet us part way even, Angelina summoned. Yeah, Gordon mumbled. Sure. Angelina turned to Simon. You're the third, aren't you? She demanded. You're the third person he came here to help. Simon glowered back. You're mad. It wasn't just a dream, she pressed. It was real. We were walking where they still are, where they're fighting something dark, something evil. Angelina turned to gaze out where the fire had been, where black had resumed its rule. We're going to find them. Come with us. I think you're supposed to come with us, for that matter. To get out there, Simon mocked. Why would I want to do that? Gordon smiled. To get away from all this? Simon glared across. Angelina sighed. Because you know you're supposed to go there, she tried. She received the same dark expression. Do what you will, she mumbled, shaking her head anew. She motioned towards the window. What do you make of that, Gordon? Of what? The 10-year-old replied. The wall's leaning in on the backyard there, Angelina explained. Something moving in or out even. I think the wall's broken through there. We could use that hole to get out. Gordon winced. It's pretty close to the blockade. Yes, Angelina conceded, it is. But they're ignoring the other movement. Maybe they don't care who gets out. There are militia people out there on the other side, right? Gordon nodded. Maybe they'll figure we're militia in the dark. Simon was laughing derisively. Angelina ignored him. Simon could have remained hidden as she now figured it. We can likely just walk right past them. Gordon thought on the idea long. And those shapes out there? He finally asked. You can't be serious, Simon balked. We deal with them when the time comes, Angelina reasoned, Gordon sighing. You're both mad, Simon concluded. He stood and paced around the railing. There's nothing but death out there. As compared to the death here, Angelina snapped. I don't know what you do, but you haven't told me I'm wrong, so I'm figuring you were the third person Starvin showed me. Simon curled his upper lip, but offered no retort. Like it or not, Angelina pressed. We're the enemy in this and every town. They're stalking us, Simon. Stay here where everyone's gone mad and that child's game has become a reality, or come with us. Out there, we might learn some real magic. I don't do magic. Angelina shrugged. Psychic? Magic? She mumbled on. Does anyone in Iroquois Falls care about the difference? Right now, unless you're with them, you're prey. And I don't see you out running with the pack. Simon's glower was murderous. It's your choice. There was a sound of a tree being felled. The three youth hurried across the house to peer out the opposite window, overlooking the street and front door. A telephone pole tilted, then fell to the street with poles snapping. There was another pole down, and a team of 5 people moved on to the next one in. Fire grew in the house at the corner. One whole wall blew out, and the flames licking up the side, and the house leaned a moment later. Angelina's eyes went wide, watching the house then fall into the next one over, catching it aflame too. They were both now bright torches in the night. A few groups moved out from behind the corner house, spreading out through the neighborhood. They'll be here in no time, Angelina rued. We have to try and get through that wall, and we've got to move now. Hiding's not an option for any of us anymore. Are you coming or not? She demanded of Simon. The 17-year-old just gawked at the fire as it grew, spreading to a third house as both houses fell in on themselves. Sparks cast outwards, igniting anything wooden within reach. Then stay, Angelina barked. Just don't blame us when there aren't any houses left to hide in anymore. She pulled Gordon back from the window and they gathered their packs. Simon was still staring out the window, pale-faced, as they started down the stairs for the second floor. Angelina was sure he was supposed to come with them, but she wasn't about to argue logic with anyone who should know it well enough on their own. They'd be fine without him.